You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Welcome into RBLR Lightning, the Stanley Cup playoff show, the finals. We have made the finals. The three-peat is definitely on now, man. I remember talking about this in the beginning of the year, how hyped we really were. And let's just be honest, it was all one of those things that was a what if, a maybe. And now we're actually here. The Bolts are 4 wins away from a three-peat, maybe a third boat parade in Tampa Bay. This is incredible times. As you can tell, I'm pumped. I'm excited. Man, I got another awesome guy from the Bolt Report here to talk with me, Mr. Jake Ricker. Jake, I know you're excited as I am. How are you doing tonight, man?
Excitement doesn't describe enough how actually excited I am for these finals. The anticipation is only getting higher and higher. Chris, it is seriously unbelievable that the Lightning for the third straight year are back in the Stanley Cup Finals. Who would have thought we would have been here if you would have asked Lightning fans after 2019? The things that have changed in this organization are unbelievable. To quote John Tortorella, they created a monster, and this monster is here and ready to go. And we have a really fantastic opponent. These finals are probably some of the most anticipated finals that we've had in a number of years. So not only is it exciting for Lightning fans and chasing history, but I think NHL fans are going to be thoroughly entertained in these finals here this year.
We are set up for an awesome series here. Before we get into the big guns, the big show, I just kind of want to get your overall thoughts of this Rangers series since we haven't talked about it since it ended. Obviously, the Bolts started off sluggish and were able to rip off 4 straight, which my original prediction was a sweep. So technically, a sweep happened. It just happened after we lost the first 2 games. So you and Matt were right though. Bolts in 6. You guys called it. You got your predictions right there. I thought overall, I think after those first 2 games, I think the Lightning really settled in defensively. The defense for the Lightning has been absolutely phenomenal since the Toronto series, in my opinion. Florida, we shut down Florida. We had the 2 rough games against the Rangers, but it was almost like that time off was too much. And once they settled back in, the defense was just stout, man. That they're just really just shutting teams down, and we really had the Rangers frustrated in games 3 and 4, 5 and 6. You could tell they just couldn't get anything going. It looked like the rest for the Bolts really paid off there too. Rangers kind of looked gassed there the last 2 games. But overall, I thought it was a really good series. I thought the Lightning played some really good hockey after games 1 and 2, and even in game 2, I thought we played better. But we were able to come away victors here. Shout out to Igor real quick of the Rangers, man. Phenomenal goalie. That guy's got a bright future. Just wanted to say that here. But Vasilevsky was, again, in closeout games, unbelievable. 1 goal allowed. Absolutely beast back there, net. Jake, man, anything in this series that you wanted to point out or talk about before we move on to this Avs series?
The talk of the entire playoffs for the Lightning is how you can't bury them because they would not lose back-to-back games, right? That was the storyline for the last 3 years, really, ever since 2019. And when the Rangers finally did beat the Lightning in back-to-back games to go up 2-0, a lot of people started talking about, wow, this could be the end for the Lightning here. The Rangers were finally able to beat them back-to-back. They can put a stranglehold on this. And then the Lightning said, all right, you had your fun. Enough is enough. We're going to now win 4 straight. And just came back, and they never looked back after those 2 losses, dominated, and won the series. So it was really impressive to see the team adjust and not panic, even though, they were the team that never lost back-to-back games. And even when they finally did lose back-to-back, it didn't affect them. The maturity of this group is it's so impressive. It is amazing to watch and how they don't panic whatsoever. I don't know how they do it. I'd love to know, because I know I was panicking sitting on my couch back at home, worried that we might be in trouble, but they didn't blink, and they're still doing it without Braden Point right now, which makes it even that much more impressive. Chris, we haven't had every run we've been without a star player, it feels like, and that they still find a way to overcome it. So it's been really impressive. It was a fantastic series. You're right, Igor Shesterkin, very bright future ahead of him. Even though he likes to flop a little bit, maybe he's going to be working with the WWE again soon. But he is a very good goaltender. He kept the Rangers in a lot of those games where they probably shouldn't have been, and the Lightning were the better team. But shout out to them. It was a fun series, and I'm sure they'll be back, no question.
So we'll move on here to the good stuff, man. Obviously, this is set up to be this could be one of the best Stanley Cup Finals in history. It's a dream matchup that everybody has wanted here between the Bolts and the Avs, and a lot of chirping going on with fans saying, the Bolts, the COVID Cup and this and that, and we got to prove this and that. But I really think the Lightning have already proved they're the stellar team in the league. I'm not too worried about this matchup, honestly. Not to take anything away from Colorado. I think they're a great team. I just think, my opinion, this year, the East was a lot stronger than the West. I think we played a lot tougher opponents on the way to the Stanley Cup Finals than the Avs did. The Avs took out the Preds, St. Louis, and then, obviously they took out the Oilers pretty easily. So I think we had a tougher test. I think Toronto's a better team. I think Florida was obviously the President's Trophy, and then obviously the Rangers, who are a young, gritty team and gave us their all. So going into this series, I'm not worried. I'm more excited than I usually am, but I just don't feel worried at all. I think the Bolts they know what it takes to get the job done here. This team has been here before. Cooper's a great coach. He's going to make the right adjustments in this series. So, Jake, what are you feeling about this series? Let's just get your first thoughts on this series here with the Avs overall.
Yeah, well, I'm going to kind of agree and disagree with you here in the sense of, I agree that whoever came out of the East was going to be a tough opponent. I mean, literally, we talked about that at the beginning of the playoffs, that every team in the East was a very, very good team. In fact, all of them were over 100 points well before the playoffs even started. And as for the West, I agree again too that most of the teams, well, not most, but you had a more of a wider range. You had dominant teams like the Colorado Avalanche, and then teams that, were good, but, weren't as good as some of the other teams in the East. But I think the Avalanche are a very good team and a dominant team. So I wouldn't say that I'm worried, but I think this is going to be one of the toughest matchups the Lightning have had, especially in the finals over the last couple of years. You think back to the last two finals the Lightning have had. They played the Dallas Stars, who were kind of a Cinderella story. And then you had the Montreal Canadiens, who were also a Cinderella story, who weren't even supposed to be in the West, but we had those weird divisions all set up. So this is definitely their toughest opponent that they're going to be facing, especially when it comes to the Stanley Cup Finals. Do I think the Bolts can handle it? Absolutely. They have proven time and time again that it doesn't matter who they face. It doesn't matter the scenario, whatever, whether it's in a bubble, whether it's in weird divisions, or whether it's a normal season with packed houses, they come to perform and they will show up big time. And they've literally done that this year. It's not like the East has been a breeze for the Lightning this entire way around. All these teams are very, very capable teams of winning a Stanley Cup. So I'm not worried, but I definitely think it's going to be a tough matchup, and it's going to be a battle for both these teams to try and come away with the cup here this year.
Yeah, and obviously coming into this series, I think one of my biggest worries was Mr. Braden Point, which we had some good news on that as of today's record here on this Tuesday, which he was skating in practice. He was on the power play in practice, which is obviously a really good sign. Cooper was saying signs point to him playing tomorrow. He wasn't 100% on it, but I think overall, I think Braden Point does end up playing tomorrow, which is huge. Obviously, with him going out, our biggest fear was, how do we replace Braden Point? You can't, you don't. And we didn't, but we played really well without him. And that just goes to show how well this team is and the depth of this team and the way that the younger guys have stepped up. And it just seems the mentality of this team overall is just awesome with when you're missing a guy like Point. And obviously, when we get a guy like Point back, that changes the game again. Just to think we just won 4 games in a row in the Eastern Conference Finals without Braden Point. Now we're getting Braden Point back in the finals. So you got to hope there's no rust on Braden. Maybe it takes him a little time to settle in. I don't think so. I think Point is a phenomenal player. I think he'll adjust fine. I think the biggest question mark is going to be, how is he going to handle this injury? Is he okay? Is he 100%? I would think he's 100% if he's going to go. I don't think they would let him go otherwise. But obviously we don't get those kind of injury information here during playoff time. So Jake, Braden Point looking to come back here in game one. Obviously that's a huge boost for the Lightning here going up against the Avs.
Yeah, and I fully expect him to be back for game one. As you mentioned, Cooper said, there's a chance that Braden Point plays in game one, and it's leaning that direction. But if not, they anticipate him playing in game two. Braden Point himself, he said that they'll see tomorrow if he'll play in game one. He said it's a feel thing. You've got to make sure that when you come back, you're going to help the team. That was his quote from the press today. But there was talk of him coming back in game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and if not, he would come back for game 7. So I would be very surprised if he does not play in game 1. If he doesn't, though, for whatever reason, if he just doesn't feel like he's 100%, he'll play game 2. It sounds like Point is very, very close from what we've seen out of him in warm-ups today. As of this recording, he looks good. He looks like he's back to mold self. He's out. No wipeouts since that first one when he was skating early on in New York, but he looks good and ready to go. And he makes the biggest difference, I think, for the Lightning on the power play. Obviously, he makes an impact 5-on-5. He's one of the top 5 players on this team, but he also makes a huge impact on the power play because the Lightning power play, it's been good at times, but it hasn't been the best. Colorado's got the stronger power play, but having him in that bumper position is a huge boost for this team and could help the Lightning out tremendously here in the finals.
So with a guy like Braden Point being out, that brings up a good point. Is there's some guys to me that have really stepped up, and 2 of them I'm going to point out real quick. Nick Paul, I think, has been absolutely phenomenal in the playoffs. Short-handed killing the PK. Paul has just been all over the puck, man, doing it by himself. Sometimes 4-on-1, and he's down there grinding on the boards. And Riley Nash had a really good game there against the Rangers. 2 good games against the Rangers. He wasn't scoring goals, but he was doing his job on that fourth line. And I thought Nash really stepped up for not playing much, for being a big series like it was in big games. I thought Nash played really well with a guy like Point being out. And like I said, Nick Paul, Nick Paul, Jake Paul. Jake Paul? Nick Paul. Sorry, Jake Paul's a fighter. Nick Paul, we got to keep him around. We got to keep this guy around. He's just his grind, his grittiness. I didn't think he would be this good. I really didn't. I didn't look into him much, but I saw him come over from Ottawa, and I was like, okay. But I think he stepped up really well here in the playoffs. Jake, anything you want to put in here towards Nick Paul or Riley Nash?
Why have we not signed Nick Paul to a contract extension yet? That's my question. He's been fantastic. I really love what he's done. I almost hope, though, that he hasn't priced himself out of Tampa Bay because, I'm sure he's looking to get a nice contract this upcoming offseason. But he's been fantastic. He's done everything that we've needed him to do and more. He's been huge on the penalty kill. How many times have we seen Nick Paul where the Lightning are making a change? He's the only guy in the offensive zone, and he's just twirling around out there, and there's 5 guys, and they can't get the puck from him. Great. I mean, it is so impressive what he's able to do. And, even though he's a quote-unquote bigger guy than most, he can still skate. He can still move, and he can score goals. He was huge for the Lightning in Game 7 against Toronto. He scored the only 2 goals. So Nick Paul's been fantastic, no doubt about it. I also agree with you with Riley Nash. It is hard for a player to be out for so long. He was with the Lightning not quite the whole season because he kept getting moved around a couple of times there for waivers and trades. But he really didn't play at all this whole entire season. And then he has to come in late in this series against the Rangers. And I thought he did a really good job. I thought he stepped up. He played solid hockey. You didn't see him on the score sheet, but he made a lot of good plays and he shut the Rangers down defensively, which is what his main job was. So Nash was fantastic. I thought Cal Foote has also been really good when he's had to play. I actually was kind of surprised he came out when they moved back to going to just 6 defensemen. Going the 12-6 route. But I thought Cal Foote's been good. I think Riley Nash has been good. All those guys that you don't expect to have huge games have been very solid for the Lightning, which is really nice. Bogosian as well, too. Bogosian's been very good for the Bolts. So whoever they end up going with here in the finals, I think they're in good hands.
It's crazy to think you lose a guy like Point and you're going to, win 4 straight games against the Rangers and go to the Stanley Cup. It just goes to show a lot of the depth of this team and just the coaching and the mentality of these guys just to win. And that next man up mentality, it doesn't stop the Bolts. They're fine
They
with
swept the Panthers, the President's winning trophy Panthers without Braden Point.
I mean, it's phenomenal what they do. It's almost like what you kind of talked about before we started talking was the Lightning are used to losing these kind of guys. And at this point, it's almost like we know it's coming and the Bolts are ready for it. They're prepared. It just goes to show this team's just, man, it's awesome to see be able to lose a guy like Point and this team come together the way they have. So a couple other things I wanted to talk about in this series. Obviously, Colorado, man, they got a lot of firepower. McKinnon, Makar's been phenomenal for them. Landeskog, they got a ton of guys out there that can score goals. They put up points. They're a fast team. I think the Lightning struggled a little bit against Toronto in the beginning of that series to stop the speed of Toronto. So I think that's a big thing in this series to me is the speed of Colorado and the Lightning's defense, which obviously, like I said, the Lightning's defense has improved tremendously since Toronto. So kind of hope we don't go back into that funk we did against Toronto where we struggled to stop the odd man rushes and the breakaways and the cross ice passes in which Toronto got a ton of those on us and they were able to score on those chances. So Jake, what do you think the Bolts need to do in this series to really shut down those top guys of the Avalanche?
It's going to be tough. Listen, Nathan McKinnon is an unbelievable star player. We've seen him like that. The one I always go back to when they were playing, I think it was St. Louis, and McKinnon just went from end to end and absolutely put the team on his back and scored an unbelievable goal to tie the game at the time. They ended up losing that game, but the point still remains that McKinnon, he can score at will, kind of like a lot of the guys the Lightning have in, Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, guys like that. So it's going to be really hard to shut him down. You're going to need guys like Hedman and McDonough to really step up against those top lines. And then, we talked about their depth that Colorado has as well. You're going to need your bottom 6 defensemen step up in Cernak and Ruda, who have been fantastic in these playoffs as well. So it's just a matter of, making sure that you got your guy, not giving up those odd man rushes, locking down that, that center ice, which the Lightning have done a very good job of once they got the lead and just kind of making it impossible for clean zone entries. That's going to be a key, right? Don't let Colorado have clean zone entries and have a ton of time and space because they will make you pay. The other good thing for the Lightning is they have Andrei Vasilevsky in net, and even if something does get through, he's usually able to make the save, So that's a big bonus for them. And I think it'll be a little different than Toronto just because the Lightning were clearly still trying to find their playoff feet, if you will, early in that series. And then we saw once really game 6 hit, to be quite honest with you, they were ready to go and were playing some of their best hockey. And the other thing I want to bring up, Chris, too, is Colorado has had I think 1 day less of time off than the Lightning did when they went from Florida to the Rangers. So what we saw with the Lightning, and I don't know if this is going to be the same for Colorado, but what we saw with the Lightning is that they struggled early in Madison Square Garden, and then they got their feet under them. And then it looked like that it kind of helped them later in the series as they were more rested and still had a lot of energy while the Rangers were tired and, we're struggling a little bit late in the series. So roles are reversed now for the Lightning. So the key for them is going to be make sure you take advantage early, try to steal at least 1, if not 2, which would be fantastic, but still at least 1 while you're in Colorado and take advantage of them trying to get back into that game shape. And then, it's going to be tougher in those later games, so take advantage early. That's going to be a key for the Lightning, I think. Although Colorado does get the benefit of starting the series at home, which I think will help them when it comes to that whole rest versus rust debate.
That was actually going to be my next question to you. Is how do you think like the Avs are going to take the days off compared to the Lightning, and is it going to be a vice versa type thing? I think it's a Stanley Cup final. I want to say that the rest isn't going to hurt the Avs. I want to say they're going to be pumped. I just want the Lightning not to fall asleep back there. I expect the Avs to go full speed right away, man. It's the finals. I haven't watched a lot of Colorado games. I know the Lightning with time off, that's just what they do. We're kind of used to that as Bolts fans. When we see them have this much time off, it's it's almost like a train, man. It takes the train some time to get going, until it can get to that full speed. So I expect the Bolts with a couple of days off to really be pumped up. I think that, like Cooper said, Vasi was the one affected the most by the time off, and I think a couple of days for Vasi is fine. I think the 8 to 9 days was a little too much, so I think Vasi's still locked in at I guess I should say full speed. You get in that full speed game mode where Vasi's seeing pucks coming left and right at full speed and deflections, and not just from practice. So I think that both teams will come out ready to go. But there's one question I wanted to ask you, and that is, do you think that the elevation in Colorado is going to have an effect on the Bolts?
Oh man,
Weird
it's
question,
tough.
I know.
It's tough to say, but I forget. I think it was Halpern who was talking about this when the media was talking to him. But he mentioned that it's tough for players usually like in the first 20 minutes. In that first period, that's when you feel it the most in being that higher elevation. But usually after the first period, you can get your feet under you and get used to it and get back to your game. So that could be a factor for the Lightning, is making sure that you're ready to go in those first 20 minutes and not letting the Colorado Avalanche jump on top of you early in that period. Will it be a huge deciding factor? No, I don't think so. Listen, these guys are professional athletes. These guys know what they're doing. They're in great shape. So I think they'll be able to handle it and make adjustments as need be. But if we do see it to be a factor at all, it could be in those, that first 20 minutes. But especially as we get later into the series too, as we keep going back to Colorado, I think it becomes less and less of a factor there. Just like for the Avalanche, the rust side of things, I think that becomes less of a factor as you get deeper into the series, where it's for the Lightning, it's the opposite, right? They might get a little more tired, so to speak, as we get later in the series. So maybe early in that first period, you might see the Lightning being affected a little bit, but I'm sure these guys will be ready. They've been practicing for the last, just for today, I believe, but trying to get used to that high altitude already. So I don't think that'll be a huge factor.
You heard it here first, Bolts fans. The elevation might slow them down in the first, so don't rage and turn off the TV. But I think they'll be fine. I think you're right. These guys are in great shape. They know what it takes. But just a fun question there. I saw some people talking about it earlier. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't really think of the elevation much. So moving on here. Obviously there was I guess I should say there's a couple injuries on Colorado's side. Defensive wise, and then they're missing Kadari as well. So Gerard out on defense, Murray and Kadari. So obviously the Lightning,
you mean Kadri?
Yeah, Kadri.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, who's this Kadari player? Is this a black ace?
Gotcha. Kadri, yes. I think obviously we're the healthier team heading into this series. I don't know how much those injuries are going to have an effect on Colorado as far as the Bolts go. This first line for the Lightning has been on fire. Kuch, Palat, and Stamkos absolutely just tearing it up right now. I don't know if the Avs are missing a key defenseman. That's in our first line is absolutely on fire right now. I think that's a good sign for us. Obviously, Kucherov leading the way with 23 points. Look at Palat, second on the team with 16 points. And talk about Palat. What an underrated player he's been, huh? Huge. He leads the team all time in game-winning goals and playoff history for the Bolts. Palat's a phenomenal player. And then obviously Stamkos I'm so happy for Stamkos, man. Getting in that brawl against New York was great. Seeing him beat up the younger guys and standing up for himself was awesome. That's definitely my captain. Stammer definitely brought the hammer. I'm happy for him. I really am. Stamkos, he's been through all the adversity. If he can't stay healthy, he can't stay healthy. Great season for Stamkos. Great playoff so far. So, Jake, do you think these injuries for Colorado, do you think our first line is going to feast?
I don't know if they'll feast, but I definitely think it gives them a little bit of advantage early in the series, which goes back to, again, right, the key for the Lightning in the series is take advantage early. Try to take at least one in Colorado while they're hurt, a little banged up, and maybe a little bit rusty. Listen, anytime you don't have star power, it's going to hurt you a little bit. But just as we've seen with Colorado is a very similar team to the Lightning. I kind of see a lot of people have said this. A lot of the Lightning in the Avalanche. They could be the next team that goes on a long run if they're the ones to ultimately come away with the cup here. But So despite them not having some of this star power, they should be able to rise above it and still play at a very high level. With that said, though, again, anytime you lose a guy like Kadri, it's going to make an impact. It's going to hurt you a little bit. So they should definitely be able to take advantage of that. You were talking about Steven Stamkos and how good he's been this year. He's been unbelievable. Eric Erlandson was writing an article earlier talking about how, remember those billboards that people put up of seeing Stamkos, where's Stamkos? And you mentioned people talking about him, with his injuries and not being able to perform in the playoffs. And then he's just had an absolute career year this year.
Awesome.
And is once again playing huge in the playoffs. So if he can continue that too, especially when the Avalanche are struggling a little bit or hurting a little bit, I should say, without some of their top guys, look out, because that could be a huge advantage for the Lightning. I think Stamkos is a kind of a dark horse to win the Conn Smythe if the Lightning win the Stanley Cup, because he's been that good for the Lightning this postseason.
So we talked a little bit about the offense, a little bit about the defense here. Let's talk about the goaltending. I think that's a huge factor in this series. That's what most people are talking about, right? Comes down to your goalie, and that's pretty much what I always say myself. It comes down to your goalie. Your goalie can win you a game. If you can score one goal, your goalie can allow a shutout. It's possible. So I think the goalie edge here has to go to Vasilevsky and the Lightning. Not being a homer at all, but man, Vezina Vasi, right? Him in net, him in the finals. He's been here obviously 2 times in a row now. This is gonna be the 3rd time, so he knows what it takes. On the other hand, Colorado's dealing with some goalie issues. I believe, how do I pronounce his name? Francouz? Is that how I pronounce his name?
So I had the same issue when I was talking to Eureka over on the Bolt Report, but his nickname is Frankie. So that's
Frankie.
The way to go.
That's a lot easier. So
right?
Francouz. So he's going to be in net for the Avalanche, as far as I know, as of right now. I watched a little bit of Colorado. He had some good games, and I think Colorado played really well in front of him. But I still think I got to give the edge to Vasi here. I think overall that's what this series comes down to, is the goaltending. We know they both have the firepower to score 8 to 9 goals. I think the defensive edge as well goes to the Bolts, only because I think Colorado's dealing with that injury. The Bolts are pretty healthy on D right now. Sergachev with a couple good wristers, he can get his shot going, man. That wrister from Sergachev is dangerous and is top in the league if he can get a clear shot in net. Hedman's been playing great. Had a couple mistakes, but otherwise Hedman's been awesome. You talked about Cal Foote. I don't know if he gets in the Stanley Cup or not, but I do miss Foote. He played pretty good. Bogo's been playing well, like you mentioned him as well. So I think the edge in goalie and defense kind of goes to the Bolts. I think the scoring and the offense is almost a wash to me, because Colorado can score with the best of them. So the Lightning can score too. So I don't know what to expect as far as scoring in this series. I want to say it's going to be high scoring, but we thought that in the Florida series, and I said, watch, it's going to be complete opposite, and it was just 2-1 games. So Jake, what are you expecting in this series? Do you think that it's going to be a firepower series, or do you think it comes down to the goalies?
Well, to start off, when you were talking about the goalies, starting there, I don't think there's any question that everybody knows the Lightning have the advantage in the goaltender box there, because listen, the Lightning have the best goaltender in the world in Andrei Vasilevsky, and some people didn't say that in the last series with the Rangers, but now that we eliminated the New York Rangers, there's no doubt that Vasilevsky is the best goaltender left in the playoffs. There's no question about that. But the reason the goaltending has gotten so much talk is because we don't know who's going to be at net for the Avalanche. Is it going to be Frankie, or is it going to be Kemper? And that's a big question mark for them. But they're both similar goaltenders. Frankie he's 6-0. He hasn't lost the game yet. He's been the hot hand. Kemper, though, has also been really good. He's got actually a little bit better of a goals against average than Frankie does. They both played similar games. Kemper's played a few more. Kemper did have an eye injury, though, because remember, he took that stick to the face, which I'm sure did not feel good. So I wonder how much that's going to affect him, although I heard Kemper says he's 100%, though, so he's ready to go. But at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters. Both these goaltenders are pretty similar. They're both good, and they can go back and forth if they need to. And again, Andrei Vasilevsky is the better goaltender between both of them. No disrespect to those guys either. They're both good goaltenders, have helped gotten their team to the Stanley Cup Finals, but Vasilevsky is the number 1 goaltender in the NHL. So the advantage goes there for the Lightning, especially, Vasilevsky as of late. And that's the other thing for the Avalanche, right? Don't let the Lightning get to 3 wins, because then you're in trouble, because then it's series clinching Andre Vasilevsky that you have to deal with. And his numbers are even more unbelievable when he gets in those situations. But as for how I think this series is going to play out, it's tough because, the Western Conference, we've seen a lot of high-scoring games. Eastern Conference, we've seen a lot of more low-scoring games, especially in the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals. I think it'll be kind of a mix of both, though. I think you're going to not see 7 to 8 games, but you're going to see, 4-3, 3-2, maybe even a 5-2 game, something like that. You're going to see a mix of both. You're going to get some really good goaltending, especially from Andre Vasilevsky, and you might get a lot of scoring too, because both these teams have so much star power and are so deep as well. So that's how I see it playing out, but who really knows? It could go either way. We could have, games that are super high scoring and then games that are 1-0 games. It's this series, and a lot of people are saying this, but this series is one of the hardest to predict in recent years, because both these teams are so well matched. It should be such a fun series. I can't wait for it to get underway. Last thing too, Chris, I know I'm going a little bit of rant here, but Colorado has constantly played former players of theirs in this playoffs, and they're once again going against one of their former players in Belmar. So hopefully he can give us some advice on how to take these guys down. But that's another interesting storyline for these finals.
A little bit of inside the locker room from PEB for us. Give us some little tips and tricks on how to take down the Avs here. Another thing I did kind of want to bring up was, the PK and the power play here. I think the Lightning PK has been phenomenal. I think they've played really, really, really good since that Toronto series. Really shut down Florida. Did a number against the Rangers, and the Rangers were hot on the power play, man. That's pretty much how the Rangers were scoring most of their goals, was on the power play. The Rangers were not that good of a team 5-on-5. And obviously going up against a team like Colorado, their power play is high powered, man. They finished 7th in the league. The Bolts finished 6th. Our PK finished 9th. Theirs finished 16th. So obviously that's regular season, but come playoff time, I would like to think in the finals that you're only going to get calls if it's really oblivious. I think the refs are getting to that point now. It's time to hold those whistles and let these boys play a full 60 minutes, 5-on-5. Let's see who's the better team. So I expect whistles, but only if it's a really, really blatant call. I don't think you're going to see a lot of fighting, maybe some push and shoving. I think the boys are going to play pretty smart here. No dumb penalties. No too many men on the freaking ice, Lightning. If you're listening to me, we don't need that in the finals. We've seen it.
Hey, they were much better at that in the last round.
The line changes were great. That's another thing I was going to say. The line changes were great, much better. It's just no dumb penalties right now. So, Jake, what do you think about the power play PK here? Anybody you think have an advantage, or you think it's pretty even?
Yeah, well, so here are the playoff stats for both these teams. The Lightning in the postseason, 22.6% on the power play, 82.5% on the penalty kill. Okay. For the Avalanche, their power play, 31.1%, penalty kills, 75.7%. So the Avs have a fantastic power play. We talked about their star power. They're kind of like, as you mentioned, the Rangers and even Toronto a little bit, having a very good power play. But the Lightning have a very good penalty kill. They've had one of the better penalty killing teams this postseason. And when you have guys like Anthony Cirelli, Nick Paul, guys that can just shut your team down defensively, even Nash, if he ends up getting in a game if Point doesn't play in one, I think that average for the Avs will come down a little bit. Not a ton. I think they're still going to be really good on the power play, but I think that number will come down a little bit. And I'm hoping Point being back as well will give the Lightning a boost in their own power play department. So I think it really does balance out. If I had to give an advantage in one spot, I think the Avs obviously have the advantage on the power play side of things. I think the Lightning are a little bit better on the penalty kill side. So it kind of balances out, honestly. And as you mentioned, usually they start to limit those calls, although we've seen a lot of penalties called in this postseason. So we'll see how the refs call things here in the finals, if that makes a huge difference. I don't think it will, though, at the end of the day, because we saw it didn't make a huge difference in this series against the Rangers. Quite honestly, there was very few calls in those last couple of games, and that's usually how it gets. So it's going to be close. It's such a hard series to predict. I know I keep saying it, but these teams are like mirror images of each other.
This will solidify the Bolts dynasty if we can pull off this one for sure. This is our toughest test.
No question.
You talked about it. The Stars, yeah, they made it. We played them. We beat them. You talked about the Habs. Weird year last year. They made it. We played them. We beat them. Should the Habs have been there? Probably not. But the Bolts did what they had to do, and they won the cup regardless. So this is it. This series, man, I'm pumped. I'm excited. I think overall, man, this is going to be a fantastic series. I think both teams are going to give it their all. Obviously, it's going to be, man, I'm so pumped. It's going to be something fun to watch, man. It's going to be tough to sleep tonight. I can tell you that. Jake, before we get into predictions and anything and everything here, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about in this series that you need to point out to the fans here listening?
No, I think we pretty much covered it for the most part. Listen, it's going to be a really fun series. It's going to be a battle. This is going to be one of the tougher ones for the Lightning for sure in recent memory. But there's no doubt in my mind that they can compete with the Avalanche. They're one of the best teams in the NHL. And until somebody beats us, they are the defending champions and the number one team in the league. So they've been fantastic. And hopefully Braden Point will give this team the boost that they need here in the finals. And they can win their third straight Stanley Cup, which I cannot believe. Never what I thought was something that come out of my mouth. I mean, it is unbelievable. Oh, and the one thing I'll say too is, listen, even if the Lightning, even if they get swept in the finals here, which knock on wood real quick, just don't want to jinx it. But even if they do, even if it happens, it's been a fantastic year for the Lightning. A lot of people said they wouldn't have made it anywhere close back to the finals again after losing that huge line of Gord, Coleman, and Goodrow, and they're right back in the finals once again. So hopefully they can win it, though. We got to get Pat Maroon's streak alive and get Corey Perry his first Stanley Cup win and really solidify that saying, right? If you can't beat them, then join them, which is exactly what Corey Perry has done.
Yeah, if I would have thought that I would see almost maybe 4 Stanley Cups before I'm 35 this year is crazy, especially in Tampa where we're not a hockey town, as they say. We're just number one in attendance this year, and we've sold out for the past 200
SEC hockey team.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Dominating down here in Tampa. It's all jealousy. That's all it is. So let's get to the predictions here, man. I'm gonna give it to you first. I'm gonna go second here. What you got? Maybe an MVP here too, if you want to. We can do either a
Conn Smythe pick.
Yeah. If you want to throw that in there.
All right. Well, the NHL analyst in me says this is going to be a close. It's going to be a battle. It's going to go 7. The NHL analyst in me says Lightning in 7 because it's going to be. And I could really see it going either way, man. I really could. It's going to be a tough, close series, but I am a Bolts fan. I am a little bit of a homer. So I'm going Bolts in 6 on this one. Here's what I think. I think if the Lightning are going to win, it's going to be at home, which is why I would go with Bolts in 6. I think it's going to be really hard for them to win in Colorado. I think they can steal one in Colorado, and that's how they win the series, obviously. But I'm going with Bolts in 6 because if the Lightning win, I think it's going to be at home in that series clinching scenario that Vasilevsky is so good at. So Bolts in 6 is my prediction, but this could go anyway. I think THG, the hockey guy, was even saying I was listening to Steve Dangle's podcast earlier, and they're like, listen, I could see the Lightning sweeping. I could see the Avalanche sweeping. I could see it going 7. I could see it going 6. It's so hard to predict, but Bolts in 6 is my official prediction. And then as for Conn Smythe, it's another tough one. Since I said Lightning, I will give who I think the Lightning player to be to win the Conn Smythe. I said Stamkos. I really do think he could win it. He's been fantastic this year. He's had a career year. He definitely deserves it. And if he keeps up what he's been doing these last couple of rounds, I could easily see Stamkos winning it. Palat is another good choice as well. He's been fantastic. Vasilevsky, as always, as he's been so good in those series clinching games still. But usually it comes down to who performed the best in the Stanley Cup Finals. So it's hard to say. But if history tells us anything, I'm going with Stamkos as my Conn Smythe winner for the Stanley Cup Finals. What about you, Chris?
Oh man, I'm with you, man. This is all a flip of the coin, right? This series is crazy. It could be a sweep. It could be 7. It could be 6. Could be both teams. I don't know. It might be a tie. It might go 12 games. We don't know. Maybe neither team gives up. It's going to be a crazy series. Man, I've been debating this prediction for a couple days now. I'm with you. I think the Bolts take it in 6. I think it really comes down to me once again for goaltending, and Bassey in shutout games has proven what he can do. Avs, on the other hand, haven't. I just don't trust their goaltending as much as ours. And I think when it comes down to it, I think it comes down to Vasilevsky saving the day for us in Game 6. I think the Bolts win that game 2-1 in Game 6 to win the series here for Tampa Bay, and the three-peat is upon us, and we're all going crazy and celebrating. And I think the Conn Smythe winner, man, this comes down to, man, I would love to see Stamkos get it. And you mentioned Plot. That would be crazy, right? Plot getting a Conn Smythe. No one would ever think that. But I think if Vasilevsky plays the way he did against the Rangers, I think Vassy gets it. Obviously, shutting down Colorado is going to be tough. Colorado's going to score goals. So if Vassy's locked in, I think it goes to him. It's tough to say, but I got to give it to, I think I give it to Bassey. I'm going to roll a Bassey. I'm going to roll Bassey in Bolton 6. I just settle in, guys. Buckle up for this series. This is going to be an absolute phenomenal series. I know Eureka is excited as he is a Avs/Bolts fan, whatever that is. we don't know what that is here in Tampa. I'm glad Eureka gets to see this. That's pretty cool to be a fan of both these teams in what could be one of the best Stanley Cups that we've all ever seen. And the hype is real, man. The ratings are up. Fans are tuning in, man. Hockey's never better than right now. So Bolts fans, this is going to be a heck of a series. Don't cry when the Bolts lose a game or two. It's the finals. It's going to happen. I just hope that the games are called clean. We see a lot of 5-on-5 hockey, and these guys just go out there and give it their all. Jake, did you have anything else that you wanted to say for us here?
Oh, I was kind of talking about it's going to be amazing if Lightning can pull off the three-peat. It's you're in a good situation when your Stanley Cup merchandise constantly gets outdated just after a year. I'm hoping I'm going to have to buy some new shirts. I got my 2021 Stanley Cup shirt on as well. And speaking of merchandise, don't forget to go check out the RBLR shop store as well. You can use code BOLTS for 10% off your order as well. They just put a new Tampa Bay shirt out there with the 3 Stanley Cups. It looks phenomenal. I'm going to have to go get one for myself very soon as well. So don't forget to go check that out. But you're absolutely right, Chris. It's going to be a great series. Be a lot of fun. I cannot wait for tomorrow, as of this recording anyway, and get this series kicked off. I'm ready to go.
I think that's all I had for the show tonight. Want to give a shout out to our listeners, our followers at RBLR Sports. We're on all platforms of social media. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you want to hear. If you got questions for us, YouTube, Stitch, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, we're there. We're trying to give you guys the best content. Jake talked about the shop a little bit. It's popping off. Go get those deals. Go rock those shirts. Represent RBLR for Mr. Eureka back here. He puts in a lot of hard work. He's a really cool guy, and he's doing an awesome job for us. Make sure you guys go check out the Bolt Report video as well. The link
is... You can get Eureka's prediction there too as well.
Yeah. The link is in the description. Eureka and Jake had a good conversation going on back and forth. If you guys haven't listened to it, make sure you guys check it out. Like I said, that's it for me on my final thoughts. Like I said, buckle up. This is going to be awesome. Let's hope at the end of this, we are talking about a freaking three-peat for the Tampa Bay freaking Lightning. So cool to keep saying that, that we talked about this a lot in the beginning when we did these shows in the beginning of the year. Like, the three-peat is on. And we questioned it mid-season. Like, do these guys have what it takes? And boom, here we are. 4 wins away from 3 straight Stanley Cups in Tampa. Just soak that in. That's one thing I'm telling all my friends. Like, I don't want it to end. I really don't. I've been soaking all these games in. I'm like, man, the playoffs started a month ago, and here we are already in the finals. There's only 7 games left, maybe, if it goes that far. So just buckle up, NHL fans. This is going to be an awesome series. Those are my final thoughts. Jake, I'm going to give you the final word, man. Go ahead and take us home.
Can't wait. Let's do it. Let's win the 3rd, and then let's go for 4, right? No, I'm kidding. We got to win the 3rd one first before we worry about that. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it should be fun. Cannot wait. Let's do it, baby. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.